Now it's time for us to introduce our second speaker for the morning. Many of you know Xavi Bové already, especially those that participated in our certificate program with VSI and SBI. Xavi is an expert in women's football. He is the communications manager at Naru Sports, which is an agency that is specified in the marketing of women's football. He also collaborates with SBI on a number of projects. And today he's going to talk to us about women's football, the marketability of women's football, and his experience having formed part of the marketing team at the Euros in 2017 in the Netherlands. So, Xavi, welcome, and we're very keen to hear what you will have to share with us today.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Diego. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Today, I want to talk about the UEFA Women's Euro. I had the chance to be there last summer in the Netherlands. The UEFA Women's Euro is a tournament that you may know as in males happens every 4 years. And it was a tournament that, in my opinion, it set a high standard for women's football. It showed the growth that it's having, especially worldwide. We have countries like United States, England, there are France and Germany that they can be the strongest ones, but we saw that in the Netherlands there are some data that we will see after. For instance, the Dutch national team, they sold out all the games during the tournament. They sold out all the games. It's easy to say that, but it's women's football and it happened. So let's get started. My name is Xavi, as you know. I work in sports marketing in women's football. I'm related to different projects. I manage the communication for professional players. I'm also involved in organizing an international women's camp. And I also have a blog where I write about women's football marketing. And my goal is to improve women's football through marketing. I think it needs a lot of marketing, and we have a huge opportunity to build something great around women's football. There are many things that can be done for the first time, so there's an opportunity that you're more than welcome if you want to come. So my goal today is to provide you the best that I learned in the Netherlands. I was there in the UEFA marketing team, based in Breda. It's a city in the south of the Netherlands. 108,000 inhabitants, and we were located at the club NAC Breda. They went promoted from the second to the first division last year, so it was a nice stadium with a capacity of 19,000 spectators. During the tournament, it had a capacity of 16, because when it happens such an event like this, they have to adapt the stands and many parts of the stadium to be to host the tournament in the best possible way. So we had some stands that were for media or for TV, for broadcasters, so the capacity of the stadium was less than usual. I would like to start the presentation with a video of UEFA from a campaign called We Play Strong. This was a campaign launched at the beginning of the Euros 1 month ago, and the goal is to get girls to play football. If we want women's football to grow, we need players, and this campaign was aimed to achieve the goal of getting more participation in women's football, especially from the grassroots.
Now we will stand up on the game.
Well, you see the message is very clear. Come play to increase the participation. UEFA wants to go beyond football. They want to get girls to participate to grow the women's football, but also because they found out that also football increases confidence among girls and other variables such as stronger personalities or happiness. So they want to make this impact through women's football, but for the good of football and for the good of girls. The structure of the presentation will be the following. First, we're going to see how the marketing team was organized in the Netherlands in the UEFA Women's Euro. Then we will see the results in terms of marketing, digital, attendance, TV impact. Thirdly, we'll go through the lessons. What can we learn from the Euro and what can we apply from today to make women's football grow through marketing. And finally, we'll go through the conclusions. So let's get started. The team was composed there in Breda by UEFA, LOC, which stands for Local Organizing Committee, most of them from the Netherlands, and then Breda, the club. There were three teams, but we were as one. And at UEFA, we had the UEFA venue director, media officer, hospitality, broadcaster, marketing. I was here at the UEFA marketing team supporting the UEFA marketing manager, and this was from the part of UEFA. Then from the local organizing committee we had other tasks such as ticketing, communications, administration, some others that required maybe a more local participation, and finally Breda. The club was very supportive and they were very active on the areas of the grasskeepers, security, maintenance, those things that are more related to the stadium and that we as guests in the stadium we didn't know. So all these three parts were very important in order to run a successful Euro. But what is marketing doing? Sometimes marketing is a very ambiguous task or department because there are many areas that can be confused by. Many times marketing is understood with advertising, and advertising is just a part of marketing. So let's go through the different areas that we did in the marketing team. The first one was branding. In branding, we first had to take care about the branding of the tournament. You had to make sure that all the visuals in and outside the stadium, like the press conference, the TV boards, also the stands, the toilets, the bars, the parking, everything was branded with the Euro visuals. Secondly, we had to take care of the sponsors. If you sponsor a tournament like the Euro, it's very important that you get the visibility that you want to get, and we had to make sure that Adidas, Crea, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, they had the brand impact that we had negotiated UEFA in advance, so we had to take care of that. Thirdly, we had to take care about the image of the sponsors of the local club. They are not sponsors of the tournament, but they can affect somehow the sponsors in the tournament. We had some of them, I mean, the ones that are competition, we had to remove or cover them. For instance, we had Carlsberg as official sponsor of UEFA, and there was Bavaria, who was the main sponsor of Breda from the club. And we had to take away and remove or cover all the visuals from that sponsor, because otherwise, what kind of sponsor wants to be their competition brand next to it? So we had to do that. We had to also cover other sponsors that they were not competition, but they affected the visibility. I will show you a picture later, but the more sponsors you have, the more logos you have, the less impact they have. So we had to make sure that the ones that were shown were the ones we wanted. And as an anecdote, UEFA goes so much into detail that one day I went to the toilet and they have some mirrors, and in the mirrors they have sponsors that were changing. So we had to also switch off all the TVs or all the mirrors the stadium, because there were sponsors that they could be either competition or rest impact to the others. And the last part about branding, we had to take care about ambush marketing. Ambush marketing is an illegal practice that is based on well, when someone wants to join the party and they don't want to pay, that's it. Imagine that if just before the start of the kickoff of the game, we have a brand, a sponsor that goes next to the stadium, and they bring their truck or their shop, and they start selling things. That's illegal, so we had to take care that they were not brands that there were brands that were not sponsors. And if so, we had to act and try to remove them. We didn't have to do anything, but imagine that in such an event like a Euro, everyone wants to join them. Here, I brought some pictures about the branding in the stadium. Here we have the tunnel from the dressing rooms to the pitch, everything covered with the Euro branding. Here we have the press conference room with the backdrop and the sponsors, and also the product placement from Coca-Cola. They had Coke, but also this brand, water brand, is from Coca-Cola, and we also had to make sure it had the correct visibility in front of the media, and it was an important aspect to do so. Here we have the flash interview area. There are two kinds of interviews. The super flash interview is the one which is done on the pitch, right after the game, when they step into the pitch and interview a player. And this one, the flash interview area, is next to the tunnel, and is when the players come out from the pitch to the dressing rooms, they cross this area and they stop by and do some, they speak about the game and give some feedback. Here we have the hospitality area. Here is one of the examples where we had the Bavaria brand, and it was everywhere in places like here, and we had to cover everything with Carlsberg. And this is very important because there are small details that can bring big results or big consequences, because here at the hospitality, you can imagine we had all the guests from Crea, from Carlsberg, from Coca-Cola, from Intersport, from all the brands, and when you have signed on a contract, you have to see it then on the stadium. Here we have the facade, the external area with the visuals, with the main entrance and everything related to the Euro, and obviously the historical and the visual signs of the club, like the logo, they could stay because it's part of the stadium. And here we have the stadium inside during a game. As you can imagine, there are thousands and thousands of spaces for sponsors and spaces that we had to take care of. For instance, this part at the top with the black cover, these were sponsors of Crea, of the local club that we had to cover. They were not competition, but they were affecting the visibility of the others, because the master camera, which is the main camera, it was here at this stand. So imagine if the first thing that they show is our sponsors from the local club, whereas we have all the main sponsors from the UEFA that are paying a lot more. Well, that they are paying, and we had visuals on the benches and this kind of boards, and is what I was telling you before, that the capacity of the stadium is being reduced by boards and also spaces from the Euros, from the UEFA, and then obviously the TV boards and many spaces that we had to take care of. Sponsorship was another task, responsibility of the marketing team. As you can imagine, we have to give the return of investment that the sponsors want to get. So we had to take care of each one of them, and it's also because if we take in mind that attracting a new sponsor or a new client costs 7 times more than make the one you have loyal, or either pay more or continue with you the next year. So this is, what you have signed on a contract is gold. You have to be all the time trying to protect the rights, because if you do anything that it can affect the sponsor. I mean, they know each other, and you get a bad reputation, and it's even worse. So you have to protect the rights of sponsors in all ways possible. We had Crea. They did a lot of activities related to the children, with entertaining, like painting faces, and also they had a space where you could kick the ball, and there was a machine that calculated the speed of the kick, and they also had a display with cars, with the product, and a different kind of activities that they were aiming to improve the experience of the game. Intersport, they were the official merchandising sponsor. They had tracks all over the stadium and in the different stadiums that the Euros was happening. Also Coca-Cola with beverage and refreshments. Carlsberg, they sponsor the player of the match. So here we see an activation after the semi-finals where Carlsberg guest he hands the trophy to a Dutch player. And let's go to the youth programs. The youth programs is one of the tasks that the marketing team does, and it's not well known because during the games of the Champions League game or a FIFA World Cup game, we see many kids that go around and do different things, but behind that organization there's a lot of work. Imagine we had here around 70 kids doing different things, so that's a very precise coordination, and you can imagine that they were, most of them, Dutch kids. I don't speak Dutch, so we had to manage to get the right things done. And here we have an example during a game. The UEFA motto is "We care about football," and they want to care about football from the young generations. And so they want to provide a unique experience to these generations. And the way they do that, among others, is to provide this opportunity to be the first line of the game. And we had from the center circle, the player escorts, national team flag bearers. Also, this is the semi-final, and we had also from the We Play Strong campaign, a giant heart, and here obviously the campaign that we saw. I was here trying to get everything under control, and yes, let's go into food and beverages. This is also another important area because the fans, that when they attend to the stadium, they have to find what they want, but obviously it has to be the correct brands. We couldn't allow brands that were not allowed to be there to sell, and we had to take care of that in every game, because these food trucks, they have providers that bring in food, bring in drinks, and we had to take care from the menu boards to the packaging where they sold the food and beverages. So it was important. We had 3 food trucks out the stadium, and then inside the stadium we had 11 bars. And well, by the way, this was the stadium, the club in the Netherlands that they drink the most beer. So I think that the average was more than 1 liter per fan during a game. So they have a lot of bars, and there they have a stadium which is very organized and very well done to have a lot of bars and an experience before, during, and after a game. VIP area. In the VIP area, we had to take care about the guests of the sponsors, trying to fulfill their needs in terms of tickets, in terms of the experience, and make sure that every sponsor could invite and could bring people in order to provide a greater experience to clients or to other people, because this is another reason why sponsors they want to get involved into a club, into a tournament. There are many benefits from B2B, from B2C, brand awareness. So this was another benefit for them. And let's go to the results. Let's see what happened. This tournament was called as the biggest ever female tournament, and it probably was. We had 2015 World Cup in Canada. It was very, very huge. But this one, I think that thanks to also the campaign that UEFA launched and all the investment that was done in advance, it got a lot of impact. But next year there is the World Cup in France. I think will be again the greatest tournament ever for women's football. In terms of TV, it was the most watched edition in history, more than the last ones that they were in Germany and in Sweden. It was following more than 80 countries. In digital, more than 20 million interactions in social media, and also a lot more visits to the website and the app. The main point in digital is that a lot of effort was done to promote the campaign of We Play Strong by UEFA. So they got a lot of impact because of that. Going backwards. Okay. In attendance, it was a growth of 15%, and as I told you before, the Dutch team, they sold out everything in the stadium. They sold out the game, but I have to say that they played in stadiums that they were around 20 or 30,000 people, so they could even bring in more people if they had played in bigger stadiums. So the rise of women's football is clear. Obviously, when there is such a big event, maybe it's easier to get higher numbers rather than if you compare to the national leagues or to the domestic competitions. But it's very good news that this happened, and I think that it's going to grow even more and more, especially next year with the World Cup. Many studies show also that the participation and the registered female players is increasing a lot, more than 90% in Champions League markets grow in the last years, and also the registered female players is growing a lot. So if we have a look at the pyramid of the players in women's football, the first we need is to strengthen the base in order to have more quality, more players, and more competition among them, so the clubs can be more efficient and have also a better performance. And we can see the results at the major soccer events like Europe. And the next year it will possibly be in England. England, after seeing the success of the Women's Year in the Netherlands, they said they wanted to establish a system, but they wanted to increase. They wanted to double the participation by 2020. So they want to set a strong grassroots in order to host such a big event for 2020 with the UEFA Women's Euro. So we will see if they accomplish. And if you're interested in women's football, and as many of you are there in United Kingdom, this might be interesting for you. So let's go to the lessons. It's clear that it had success, but we have to look at what we can apply, what we can learn in order to improve women's football. The first thing is that women's football has a different set of values. It could be more pure sport, more transparent, and from my understanding, they have clear values as closeness and purpose. Women's football is like a family, and when I went someday to FC Barcelona women's game, I was impressed because at the end of the game, the players stood there for 20-15 minutes with the fans, taking pictures, talking, signing autographs, and that would be impossible with. I don't imagine Leo Messi standing there 15 minutes after a game signing autographs, but it happened with the women, and that's an opportunity, and also for sponsors, for media, and for everyone, and also the value of purpose. Women's football in many places is not sustainable, and there are many players that play because they love it. I mean, if that's almost mandatory, I mean, there's a purpose, there's a clear objective, so you have to leverage on that, because that brings to a lot of opportunities of storytelling that maybe they're not in men's football. So the first, in my opinion, is fan focus. We have to focus on the fan to see what they. I think that also Edu was very clear with that, and we have to see what they think, how they behave, what they like, what they don't like, because everything here is for the fans. So we have to set up a whole experience based on that. So first, experience. And to design a great experience, you have to focus on the life cycle. If we see the life cycle of a product or a service in the market, we have different stages: introduction, growth, maturity, and then when it goes down. And we have to bear in mind that women's football is at the introduction stage in terms of marketing. There are many markets where women's football has been existing for a long time, but in terms of marketing, we have to start to do many things for the first time. But that's an advantage, because the one who does it first, he or she will have a bigger impact. And To do that, we have to focus on the innovators. We have to focus on the first that are willing to try, that are willing to listen and to give a try to the sport. These are the people that stay in long lines to get the next iPhone, because they want to be the ones, they want to be the different ones that do this for the first time. And in case of sports and in women's football, but this can be applied to many sports, most of the times media are the first interested to talk about something different and something new. Women's football is not new, but we can do things that are new for the first time, and we can do things differently, especially with creativity. There's a lot of room to do new things, so let's leverage on that, and let's start focusing to attracting media, doing things with fans, with sponsors that can be interesting for everyone. We also have to watch out the touch points. The touch points are those moments where a customer and a brand, they connect and they can emerge positive or negative feelings. This is when, for instance, in your case, you came yesterday, you go to a hotel, but you cannot plug. Maybe there's not a space to plug your mobile phone to charge it. That's a touch point. So there are also touch points in football and in women's football, and they are most of them based before, during, and after a game. Before, we have to make sure that all the information of the game is set on the place that it has to be, that it's easy to buy or to acquire tickets. This can seem like easy or things that are obvious, but they are not. I mean, you cannot find the schedule of the game, or you're going to go. So before the game, we have to take care of these things. Also during the game, right information, clean toilets, trying to avoid lines in front of the bars, and providing an experience during a game that is worth telling. And finally, I would say getting feedback from fans, because if we are setting a whole experience for fans, we have to know what they think about our service, and asking feedback about the experience. It can allow us to build an even more satisfying experience. So the first one is looking in the mirror in order to know where do you come from, what's the origin. These are the basis for storytelling, for marketing something from a story, from a different aspect. Because in marketing you have two options: you can be the cheapest, or you can be different. If you want to be the cheapest, there will be always someone cheaper than you. So you don't have no remedy. You have to be different. So the first thing is to look inside and to see what are your strengths, where do you come from, what's your environment. Then identifying assets, going to the beach with pen and paper and start writing all the TV boards and every asset that you have in and outside the stadium, because that's part of the value you can offer. Then seducing fans and partners. If you give more than expected, for instance, ABAR, they provide a 10 times ROI, return of investment. For each €1 the sponsor spend in ABAR, they get 10 euros back. So that's giving a lot more than they expect, and that's the way of seducing fans and sponsors in order to have a strong relationship with them and a successful model around football. And finally, storytelling in digital. Here at the stadium, Espanyol Stadium, they have a capacity of 40,000, but if they stream a match, they have a capacity of millions. So we have to leverage those channels, we have to be there, and we have to, and especially in women's football. In women's football, we have the challenge that there are not many matches that are broadcasted, so we can use social media in order to get more awareness and to get more visibility to the game. I would like to show another video. This is a video, for me, it's one of the best videos in women's football. It's a campaign launched by Icelandair, a sponsor of the Iceland national team, that it was launched just before the Euros, and it's a very good example of how an interesting story can be told in women's football. I think, Jill, that this was the activation campaign we talked about on the webinar after, so.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's go directly to the conclusions. First one, marketing is the epicenter of the value that is provided in such an event like Europe. Then women's football is awakening. We see that in terms of participation, sponsorship, media impact. There's still a lot to go, but the first steps are being done in a good way. And finally, let's start from the fun. Let's obsess with what the fans think about us, and let's provide a unique experience to them. So thank you very much.